My friends would ask me, hey, can you just slow down or just not drink as much? And my answer would always be no. Why would I? I need this. And having a understanding of alcoholism and addiction really ruins your using and drinking. So having had a substantial amount of time twice, you remember that stuff and you watch it unfold, and it's scary because you can't stop. You don't know when it's gonna stop or how it's gonna stop. I'm gonna get sober because I can't use or drink if I'm dead or if I'm locked up or if I get sober. So I'm Tyler Jackson. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. So my dad went to prison before I was born, and I still talk to him, like we're cool. And my mom, she did the best she could, but she let me live with my grandma because that's really what I wanted. As soon as I was born, I was handed to my grandma, and it was an instant connection. So my grandparents raised me from the age of 3, and my grandpa was a medical doctor. He ran his own ER, and so he was gone a lot, but he was very involved in my childhood. He taught me a lot of principles that I had a hard time internalizing until now, honestly. My dad being in prison always confused me, and I never really knew exactly why, and he's even told me the story about what happened, and it still bugs me that he's still in there, because if that's true and you really are just lost in the system, there should be some sort of way to get him out. But the fact that he's still in there, it's always been like, it always rubbed me the wrong way. So he's a good guy, and my mom really loved him. They planned me, so we've always had kind of a good relationship, but I've developed resentments toward him for not making better choices since he did plan me. And I often wonder, like, I know what my life would have been like if I just stayed with my mom and dad. I probably would have ended up in a lot more trouble just because of the places they were living and the things that you do in those kind of situations. I was really into theater and dance. I used to put on shows, full productions. I would set up lights and charge tickets. So my babysitters would have to pay to come see, and I would dance. I learned about myself that I liked the lights, and I liked the music loud and the special effects, and I really enjoyed that escape. That was what kind of drove me when I was a kid. I always needed something to look forward to, or I would just be kind of lost. So I did a lot of entertaining myself. I would make movies or pretend that my yard was a theme park, and my Grandpa Harry set up a harness with a rope so I could swing like Peter Pan in the yard. I really liked performing. My grandpa on my mom's side was an alcoholic, and he's since passed. There is a lot of addiction in my family. It's a lot, and it's still happening today, and it causes rifts for sure. And that's why I've kind of had such discipline and motivation to be an example of what can happen when we overcome it. It's not easy. I was always looking to escape, basically. Like, you know, I lost my virginity when I was 13, and that caused a whole problem. My grandparents swear I started using in 8th grade. I didn't. I was just skipping school to just hang out. So codependency got me in a lot of trouble. Depression, my ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was very young, still in preschool. I was medicated for it. I was medicated for it throughout high school before they knew about my addictive personality. And I saw the signs after going to school, just counting down hours until I can get off and go get high and drink or whatever I can get my hands on, because it wasn't readily available, but I found a way. And once I saw that happening, once I started getting consequences like the police pulling me over and putting me in cuffs and the dogs getting called, and I'm hanging out with people I wouldn't normally hang out with, I just saw it going down a very dark path. So I asked my grandma if I could go to rehab at 17. And I learned so much about what addiction and alcoholism is I finally figured it out that, it may not be my full problem, but at least there's a solution to that. And so I was pretty excited. And I was pretty thorough. It's just when I stopped doing this stuff. First time I used was probably around 14, about a year after I moved to Baton Rouge. My family had to move to Baton Rouge because my grandpa lost a contract with the hospital he was working at and found another one in Baton Rouge that paid more and was a better opportunity, so we all moved. And it was kind of sad, but at the end of the day, I did fail 8th grade and I was able to go to high school at this new place, and it was new, but I didn't know anybody, and it's really easy to get in with the people that use, because that's really all you gotta do is use with them. And so I did, and I remember just feeling so euphoric, and I chased that and never found it again. And that's what kind of led me to wanting to check in. And honestly, it was weed, but it led to other things. Towards the end of my drinking, it was alcohol, and it was anything you had. Anything you had. And I would just take it. I wouldn't ask questions. Acid, ecstasy, heroin, whatever. And I would do it to excess, and I would be very confrontational with everyone I was around. My pride and my defects were just so strong, and I couldn't make lasting relationships with people because I would get in my own way and I would hurt everybody in my life, including my family. It became more of a chore than a fun time. It was something that I had to do to get up. I was constantly thinking about it. It was that obsession that I didn't know what the obsession was yet. I just knew that I had tunnel vision and I couldn't focus on anything else until I got it. I needed to feel different somehow. So it led me. That was my only my only goal was really just to get high. Boredom really motivates my alcoholism. If I'm bored, if I'm not busy, or if I'm just resting and being complacent, it's a recipe for disaster. That's usually when I'm on my way back to drugs and alcohol. I remember moving back in with my grandparents after my first year sober and just kind of doing the same thing I was doing in high school, except I graduated high school. It got bad again, and I got my first charge for possession and got put on kind of like a pre-trial program where they drug test me and I go to therapy, and I couldn't pee clean, and the therapist kind of gave me an ultimatum. It's like, either you're gonna go to jail or we can try to get you into treatment. And so I went to treatment and I ended up in Montana. I was running from a lot. I was running from my ADHD, my depression. I was running from just not feeling a part of. I think really at the end of the day, I was just seeking connection with something that I felt I couldn't obtain sober. And I felt alone in a room full of people more often than I'd like to admit, even in sobriety. And it took what it took. I had to fully give it up and try something different, do the whole thing. I went to Full Sail on a full scholarship for music production, and I ended up dropping out after a relapse. And there was a solid 2 months where I was more or less always drunk, and I went into this sort of depressive alcohol-induced psychosis. And I just remember feeling so afraid of everything. I was so scared I couldn't even watch TV if there were people on the screen. It had to be either cartoons or I had to turn the TV off and just hear the sound. But I was so antisocial that I tried harming myself, and I told my sponsor at the time, and which led me to get Baker acted for the first time. I became morally bankrupt more so this last time. And they say the disease is progressive. I didn't quite understand what that meant until I'm making choices that would horrify me as a kid. And the progression looks like I still have a good heart, but I'm making choices that totally contradict it. And if I could help it, I wouldn't want to, because at the end of the day, it's driven by my usage and my drinking. It's not who I really am. And so just it's like I'm watching myself do this from a different point of view. It's like I'm not myself. It's like I'm a shell. At the end, I just had nobody and nothing. I always gave my family hope whenever I get sober, because things get good after a while. It doesn't get good immediately. Every time I get sober, it kind of sucks. And then slowly but surely, life gets better. And then I would relapse and kind of just ruin the whole thing. And the last run, I totaled 2 cars in the span of 2 months and got my first DUI. I had a full-time job delivering pizzas, and I ended up, delivering my last pizza while drinking and driving, and I rolled the car, into someone's lawn. I was going like 60 in a residential, and I just remember thinking that I was about to die, and that's okay. The final incident really wasn't much of an incident. It was more of just a feeling, that impending doom, that if I don't make a major change really quickly, it's all over. Like, I just knew it in my heart that if I didn't get sober again, I was gonna die or kill somebody. I just knew. And it was horrifying. I didn't have a job, so I had no money coming in. I didn't have a car, and I didn't have any good direction. So I called my grandpa to ask for money so I can Uber to the ER, and he said no. That was the first time I'd ever felt so disconnected from my family that I knew this was either going to end me or start something beautiful, and I chose to just believe the latter. And so I did. I called 911, and an EMT came and picked me up and brought me to the hospital, where they basically told me that they couldn't do much for me, but they gave me a list of numbers to call, and they told me to call first thing in the morning. And so I did, and within 24 hours I was in Mississippi getting picked up from the airport to go to treatment, and that was April 3rd, 2018. So my biggest question when I got sober this time was what was going to be different. I remember I was so angry. I actually did some anger management with a therapist there. I was just afraid because I knew what I needed to do, and I just knew if I did it, I'd stay sober, but I'd never continue to do it. I just have such a track record of going back out, so I didn't know what would be different this time. I hoped it would be, and so once I progressed in that treatment center, they sent me to PHP, and we didn't do any meetings. We would just have group therapy, and I became suicidal again. I told them, look, I need a meeting. And so they started bringing me with them to the meetings, and my insurance ran out, and they told me I can go to Las Vegas. That was my option. And it's a wild thought, but I had some faith that it would work. And so I went, and they'd have people come into the treatment centers to bring meetings in, and I asked one of them to sponsor me, and he would pick me up and take me to meetings, and we went over steps. I started making music again. I left all of my equipment in Baton Rouge when I got sober this time. Since then, I've accumulated it all back plus some. And music had always been a huge part of my life. Even when I was a kid, I would make mixtapes and stuff. And at 11, I got my first software. So since then, it's always been kind of a part of my makeup. So getting sober in Vegas really amplified that. So where I was doing it out of necessity to kind of survive around my surroundings and the people that really wanted to leech off of me, and now I have a newfound drive. The music I started making in Vegas, I was sad and I was lonely, and so it translated pretty differently than I was. It's different than how I feel now, and I was able to do more out there because a lot more opportunities are out there. So I was making music with people from work. I was experimenting more with my sound. It started a new chapter in the music making aspect, and like to this day I look back on Vegas and that experience with a lot of fondness. My fuck-ups really are my biggest blessing nowadays. My experience has led me to be able to actually be of service. Like, music isn't self-serving. It may seem like it because I'm speaking about my experience and whether or not it translates, but it's really just to express, so if someone has the same experience, they can feel like they're not alone. Came into sobriety with nothing. I was looking at eviction. I had totaled 2 cars. I had no prospects, no family really, and no friends. I have all of those things, plus some. My life is so much fun. I've had way more fun sober than I ever had when I was drinking and using. And it is one day at a time, to the fullest extent. It's one moment. If I can just not use or drink, I think today is forever. Right now is forever. And if I can just not drink or use in this moment, I have a chance.